call a meeting to order at 3 p.m. on Monday, June 23rd. A quorum is present. We'll do roll call for attendance. Mr. Warren,
Here.
Mr. Schoner,
Here.
Mr. Stivers is here. First order of business is reorganization, election of officers, given that we're heading into a new fiscal year here.
Wait a minute. We did that.
We did that, but that was for FY25. So now
Oh,
we just got reappointed for 26. So technically.
oh my goodness. That's true. By the way, I have sworn myself.
Good. Tony, you're sworn in too, I assume?
I am.
Good.
Okay.
Me too. So I am willing to be chair again unless somebody else wants to do it. So have any other eager volunteers for that?
I would nominate Will Warren to be clerk.
And Tony for vice chair, you willing to do that?
I'm happy to be vice chair.
Okay.
Okay.
So I'll move that we retain the same officers as currently. Have a second?
I second. Will
Okay.
Warren.
Roll call vote. Warren,
Aye.
Schoner,
Aye.
Stivers is aye. So same officers. Okay, meeting minutes for May the 2nd, right, Bill?
Yes, our last meeting. Yeah.
Yeah, I had one small typo in line 27. Our
Okay.
legal counsel is COUNSEL instead of CIL.
Okay. I'll change
Everything
that.
else looked fine to me. So
Well, then I move if it looks fine to Tony. I'll move
any
that
other
we
changes?
approve
Tony?
them with the change noted to be made.
Second. So Warren vote,
Aye.
Schoner,
Aye.
Stivers is aye. So minutes are approved. Excellent. New business is the charter contract, and I've been speaking with Bill Solomon about that. And as you guys saw, he provided an update of his recommendations for next steps there. I think there are two issues here. One is what contract terms are we going to ask for? And second, what is the capital payment that we're looking for here? And as I think, as folks have seen, we did actually, we got a pretty good deal with Verizon when we were able to get up from like a little under $100,000 over the 5 years to like $125,000, $130,000 from Verizon. And Charter has about a little less than 20% of the subscribers that Verizon has at this point. And all these guys are going downhill fast in terms of subscriber counts. So with that theory, if Verizon got $130,000, the number for Charter is something a little over $20,000 that we would ask for proportionately. And I think Bill feels that we should be able to get that. But he's going to start there at least and see what happens. My feeling is that I think there's great value in just getting the thing done. Charter is not going to be a huge deal breaker for us. I'm not eager to spend lots of legal fees to negotiate every little fine point for this thing. So it'd be great to get it done. And I'd start with a reasonably active ask for the charter stuff and then see what they come back with. But Bill thinks they're going to be more difficult to work with than Verizon was. I don't know. He's been working on some other charter agreements.
I still have nightmares from 5 years ago.
Yeah, that was challenging. Charter actually has just been acquired, I guess, by Cox. And so there are some, corporate legal things going on there that they're working through. And Bill was thinking maybe that's going to create enough smoke and dust in the atmosphere to make them less eager to spend a lot of time worrying about us. We got to be a minor dewdrop on the entire picture here for them. So if they're smart, they're not going to spend a lot of energy on this one, I think, but we don't know that yet. So anyway, the goal then is to figure out what we want. And I think Bill's comments were aimed at trying to get the same support as we've gotten from Verizon in terms, I think we've had one more additional HD channel we want to ask for. And other things technically that are similar to what Verizon agreed to. Bill thinks that simply having the Verizon agreement signed will give us some amount of leverage with charter, but he said that's not a foregone conclusion, certainly, but that's one of the places that he would start from.
I guess the, the question I would have is, since we are so small and we're asking for a relatively small amount, I'm just wondering, what they would see as the upside for them in fighting things.
I hope not much.
Yeah, me too.
Even if they were going to be very aggressive. Can you guys hang on a second? My phone is ringing. Maybe it's Bill. Be right back. This is Sam. Good. How are you? I sent you an email, forwarded that email that had the link, I thought. Okay. All right, let me try that again here then. Hang on. Bill's having trouble getting in. Let me go off here and resend the link to him. Bill, I just sent you the panelist link. Sign in with that and I'll promote you to our participant link. I'll promote you to panelist. All right, thanks, bye. Okay, I sent him the participant link. He's going to join. I'll promote him to panelist, and then we should be off and running. And one other question is how technical do we need to be in terms of the process? I've gotten different opinions on whether we actually have to hold a public hearing or not. We did at one point in the past, and a couple of times, I guess, and nobody ever showed up.
No, actually, for the Verizon, for the last negotiations 5 years ago, we held one public hearing that was adequate for both contracts.
Yeah, but as I recall, Mr. Lett is the only person who actually shows any interest in this. So, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't do it. So we'll see. Still don't see Bill in here yet, but presumably working on it.
Well, I mean, we could certainly hold a public hearing. They're not, they're not very strenuous.
Yes.
So I'll ask a question while we're waiting here. So you said ask for another HD channel.
Yes.
So I guess my question is why? What's the intended use of another HD channel?
Just gives us the ability to pump content out in higher resolution.
Do we have an HD channel today?
We have one from Verizon. Yeah. So we're trying to match. What
I see. So we would like to have a HD channel for the other carrier.
Yeah.
I see. Okay.
To get the same thing that we have for Verizon, basically.
Okay.
Again, I don't know exactly, how Southborough Access Media uses any of that stuff, whether they use it or not, frankly. But the goal was to match Verizon. And at one point, the SAM people said they wanted to do that. So.
Are there any highlights of the budgets that we should talk about, or we just, I get the feeling we're going to go through the list of things that Bill came up with, and that's going to be pretty much our agenda, right?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
Again, we don't have any direct sway at this point over the SAM budget, which is a point of debate that's been going on for the last 6 months here now. We would like to have more influence over that from a select board standpoint, and they have been resisting that. Although recently, I think Kathy Cook has spoken with Bill Paley about it and seems to be making some progress on that. So I don't know exactly where that stands, but Kathy said that they're getting better cooperation there. So we may have more say on that. But historically, basically, the deal has been that the town sends them the money and they spend it as they choose, and there's no oversight really. Still no sign of Bill here.
Is he making that left turn off of Route 9 again, or?
Into oncoming traffic. I don't know.
That's a deep cut, Tony, from 5 years ago. It was back in the days when people would have in-person meetings.
Did send him the link.
Is he set to be a panelist, or should he raise his hand?
No, I'm watching the attendees.
Okay,
He will come in as an attendee.
all right.
I'll promote him to panelist.
So Tim is on the line?
Tim is an attendee, yes.
Okay.
Here's Bill again, I think. Hang on. Good to see him. I have a pencil handy. What does it say? What is it? Yep. Okay, I'll forward. All right, I'll send the same link then. Right. Right. Hang on again. I got to send another link here. Okay, apparently that didn't work. He gave me another email address to try, so I'll send it to him. Maybe Comcast, Charter, and Verizon has cut off his email. That would,
Well, if you ask me, it may well be the Iranians. You never know.
okay. I think there are a lot of other targets that are higher priority than we are.
I don't know. I mean, this is fairly world famous. Certainly that becomes a sort of a blanket excuse, right?
Right. I used to work with a guy who was a very slippery guy, had somewhat questionable ethics, and he was famous for being late to meetings, but he would always rush into the meeting horribly late, say, sorry, there was an accident on the freeway, which he claimed wasn't lying. There was an accident somewhere on the freeway, but not in his way necessarily, but he would try to skate by on that one. Okay, Bill. Hope we're not getting charged for this time. Here we go. He came in as a panelist. Okay. I will rename him.
All right, I'm just gonna change where I am.
I just renamed you, Bill.
Okay,
Good.
all right.
Okay, welcome.
Thank you. A busy day, but good to be here. All set.
Bill, I don't know if you've, can't remember if you've met all of us. You know Will from the past. Tony Schoner is a relatively new committee member. I'm not sure if you've met
Hi,
him.
well, again, hi, Tony. Oops, let me also move in my computer
Okay.
location. Nice to
And
meet you.
we, Bill, took care of the administrative things. We reelected officers and did the minutes. So
Good.
we're now into the new business, which is the charter agreement. And I gave the group a little bit of a background in terms of where we are and what the goal is, which is to get it done as soon as possible, as painlessly as possible. And folks have, I think, looked at your summary piece, and so we're interested in trying to figure out as quickly as possible what the next steps are to get to the finish line quickly here. And I guess there are two pieces. One is the capital request. Two, the other parts to try to get support contract terms that are consistent with the Verizon contract. And so we look to you, I guess, for recommendations on how to proceed in as straight a line as possible to get that done.
Okay, I'm just gonna put up my document here. Oh, let me pull it up 1 second. Let's see. Open up here. Okay, that's the old summary. You get the new one.
You should be able to do screen sharing too. if
Yeah,
you-
yep. And do you see the screen there? My screen?
Not yet.
Okay, let me hit it
A
again.
green thing at the bottom to share.
Yeah, yep.
So Bill, this is updated from what you sent out earlier.
No, same one.
Oh, it is. I've got that one up, so
Oh, okay.
screen sharing is optional for me. but I
Okay,
don't know
then I
about you
can
guys.
move mine. Let me see if I could put mine up, just so that I can move it.
Bill, you should be able to screen share too.
Yeah, no, I did. I did hit it and then.
We don't see your screen.
Yep, share.
There we go.
Okay, all right. And you seeing the document?
Yep, got it.
All right, good.
Good.
All right. Well, nice to be with you both. Mr. Warren, you go by Bill? Is it or William?
Will,
Will,
Will, okay. And Tony goes by Tony. I know that there on the screen.
and Sam goes by many derogatory names.
It's the modern social media age. All right, so we did the Verizon licenses, and when I went back to do the summary, all I can say on the Verizon license, wow, we did very well. We got a lot of money for a company that's foot and a half out the door. So the challenge is, and it's an interesting one, Charter is really difficult. I'm dealing with charter and in a few communities, a group of 4 in the northern Berkshires and a large city in the southern Berkshires. And we've been mostly dealing um, in the southern, the largest city in the southern Berkshires. You could probably guess what it is. And also Harvard, which is a little ahead of that. But and so, I developed a relationship with Paul Abbott, who was not going to be the person we're dealing with. We'll probably deal with Nancy Clark, who's now replaced, gone for a while now, Bill Maher, who just didn't do anything. Um, and so Abbott's the chief attorney in Washington, and I developed a good, smart guy, very smart guy, but a good relationship. And I actually found out, as I told Sam, that they had been not calculating the revenue right. So in one of the communities, we should get about $300,000, for back payments, which are not available here because of the nature of what your current license says, that it's excluded from gross revenue, the category that they were not paying. But the bottom line is they're really challenging, and they'll say to these communities, we'll be lucky if we can give you half of the PEG capital. And I'm focusing now on PEG capital. We'll be lucky if we give you half of the PEG capital you got last time. So, and you did very well last time, considering, but, and I did the analysis and you have there. So last time, you get $19,000, which based on the subscribers was almost $50 per subscriber, which for charter is very good. That used until recently, Comcast considered $50 per subscriber over 10 years for PEG capital a good number. So you did very well. But it's a whole different world. They want a cable license because without that, unless it became a phone company, they can't provide internet or telephone. But they don't have any interest, and they're sort of shame. It's hard to shame these guys.
Mhm.
So now the challenge we have, and let me pull out the Verizon license. I had it here. Let me see if I have
Hey,
it.
Bill,
Yeah.
to cut to the chase on this,
Yeah.
my personal preference is that if we get half of what we got last time, I'm not eager to spend,
Yeah. No, I
90
was just,
days
and I'm sorry, I'm
arguing
just kind of
this,
mosing
and
along, but
10
what
grand is not
well,
worth
what
it
I
to
want to
me
say
because
is
of
the
that.
challenge. I just want to give the overview. The challenge is, and I have to pull up the Verizon license. I had it printed. I can go get it. Is that you do have Verizon does have a level playing field provision, and let me just get that license. I'm sorry, I thought it was up on there on the screen. So let me go get that. It must have been outside of the file.
Will, Tony, I mean, do you guys think that it's worth going to the mat over an incremental 10 grand for charter at this point?
Well, but I think what Bill is saying is that if we don't go to the mat, we lose some of the money we already got from Verizon.
That was not quite my understanding. If that's true, then we ought to make the effort, certainly. But for 10 grand, if we can get it done quickly, to me,
No,
that's,
I agree, but I would be concerned about the level playing field language there.
yeah. Second. And Tony, just FYI, some of these things basically have deals that say that, like Verizon says, if somebody does a less favorable deal, then Verizon can take advantage of whatever additional stuff the town gives away to that additional carrier. So we make sure we keep an eye on the comparative terms here,
Yes, I've seen them do that. Yep.
inadvertently give away money that we think we have. And again, all these guys are going downhill steadily to the point where we're gonna
Well,
have
that's
real
that's
issues.
one question I want to ask Bill, which is that the streaming services are getting to be a real headache for people, and I wonder if there's any move for the cable companies to begin consolidating access to various streaming services. So I know Verizon, there are certain streaming services you can sign up for through Verizon now. Um,
Yeah, I can't
Hey
answer
there.
that.
I just to finish something else, and I had this up last night, but let me put up the Verizon license.
So Bill, what Will was asking the question about consolidation of streaming services into these carriers' systems as the streaming revenue goes up and cable revenue goes down. I'd comment that other towns, Westboro just voted to fund some of their cable access out of town budget.
Yep.
Northborough actually has a communications department that now manages all of this stuff and is funded substantially out of the town budget. So that trend is certainly going on out there.
Yeah, and Harvard pays more than Charter does toward because it's a wealthy town too, but toward what their program, which is government run.
Mhm.
All right, so let me just all right, Verizon. All right, so this one isn't good enough.
Let me just ask one question. So
Yeah.
fees that are brought in from Verizon and Comcast, I guess it is,
Yeah.
do they have to be spent on the public cable access broadcast?
In Massachusetts, it needs to be spent on PEG access or something, somewhat related to that. And not
But
in the rest of the
does
country,
it
but
have to be, does it have to be spent on actually broadcasting over a channel, or can it be used to just broadcast over the internet?
I once tried to trick Comcast into signing something that that would allow that. Only like the fourth guy who read it finally noticed it. So, the Charter particularly is big on, well, they're the
So
last one
the answer is no.
well, the answer is no. They're the last ones
Okay.
to complain about using the internet because they only can be in the right of way and provide internet service because of their cable franchise, unless they
Yeah.
want to become a phone company, as I mentioned. So
So
that it would be no right because, I mean, who
So
knows what
that's
they
all I
would
want.
notice with you?
That's all I wanted to know. I was
Yeah,
just looking
yeah,
for a yes
yeah,
or no. Okay, thank you.
yeah. You wouldn't be. You probably shouldn't, and you probably wouldn't get away with it. You might get away with more because you're so under the radar.
so you're
Um,
going to bring the Verizon license up there.
yeah, I have that here. Let me just. Well, I gave you. Yeah, let me put it up. I protected you on the capital, as we talked about before, Sam, on the Verizon license, so that um, there's not a me too on the capital. In most licenses, including your last licenses, you remember if you got less capital from another cable company, then Verizon could say, well, they got a better deal and we can lower what we have. So I don't have that. I got rid of that quid pro quo sort of thing. They
Mhm.
have some general language. And let me go to the general language. 251. If you see that, is it big enough? I can make it
Yep.
bigger.
Make it a little
The
bigger.
issue with make it a little bigger. If the issuing authority enters into any cable franchise or similar agreement um, in the town with terms or conditions materially less burdensome than those imposed by the licensee, then within 60 days, they can commence negotiations to modify this license. And if they don't agree, if it doesn't, if we can't get to a deal, they have a few things they can do, which none of which really matter anymore because arbitration and mediation we'd have to agree to. They can give you a notice that it'll expire in 36 months. Or they can terminate their same thing in license in 36 months or begin the renewal process, which is like a 36-month period. So it's not as if in Southborough you're at tremendous risk as you would be most places because of the way we did our license. But I did experience in Winchester where I did the Verizon license. I gave to the chair who negotiates in other places, great bright guy, not retired but older, and he just took too little money from Comcast, and so he violated the idea that you can't take less. And just generally speaking, if you take less money from, if Verizon gives you more money in 5 years, since they want a 5-year license with an out, if they give you more money in 5 years than your license is with Comcast in 10 years, then they squawk about it. Now, I'm not sure how much they realized they didn't have a leg to stand on in terms of enforcing it because, well, I took away their ability like here, but still, in my book, and this is why I got you good license, in my field, you deal with folks for 5, 10, 20, 30, 30 years. And there's just a matter of like good faith and treating people well. And so when Verizon comes and gives you really big money, and then as they see it, even though it's a small system with Charter, you give the other guy a sweetheart deal. And if it gets posted, Charter may not, I don't think Charter sends the licenses to the state like Comcast does. We're supposed to, a lot of people don't. But if they notice, so if they notice that, they'll like send you a letter and say they want to redo the deal. And I have someone who treated me well and therefore treated you well, who feels like I let him down.
Yep.
Because
Well, why don't we then, it sounds like we should ask Charter for the 21K or whatever from a capital standpoint.
well, the
Work hard to
numbers
get that
again,
done.
let me just put it down and then we'll just do the calc. So it's when I did the numbers, the 21K would be using the same, and again, the same methodology that that we use for for Verizon and using the Verizon a year back, which helps Charter. So now again, last time they paid 19. So his Paul Abbott or the woman who's here, Nancy Clark, here she comes. They'll be they'll be dumbfounded. I mean, they'll actually not want to give you half of what you got before. They'll say we're lucky to give you like $9,000. So I calculate it other ways, but one way to calculate this is, we certainly, and here's the other thing I did too. If we're going to get to a pet capital number, there's no way we're going to get to it over 10 years. In other words, and so I decided first time ever that, here it just makes sense to do the 5-year license because, we're in the world of, well, Verizon did it, so you should do it. So we got to stick with 5 years.
Yep.
So if you took the 21,956 and you went on the theory that, and again, it was interesting is because we don't have the 10 years versus 5 years. If you did and I calculated two other ways. One, if they did the same per subscriber in 2020, you'd be 12,677.
Yeah.
And if you applied the cost of living index, just I used the CPI index from the government, that'd be 15,680. So the question of how to handle this is really a question of how to best negotiate. And I'm one who likes to come in with not a pie in the sky number. But as you said here, our 21,956 We're just asking to do the same as the other one, so we're not at risk. And
Yeah.
the Charter people are not likely to look at our Verizon license. They may or may not. When we tell them we're at risk, Paul Abbott would probably take a look to see, and he could look and say, "Well, you're not really at risk because they can't do much." But
Yeah.
also, but they're unlikely to do that.
But technically, we are at risk, and it sounds to me like starting with the 22 number to make it equivalent to our Verizon deal is the right place to start.
Yeah,
unless-
but we're not just again, we're not at risk because
Right.
none of their remedies make
Yeah,
a time's worth of difference to us.
have teeth.
But we have it's the moral obligation, I think,
Yeah.
that we have at the end of life. What do you have, right? You want to treat people well, and you treat people well who treated you well.
So it
So
doesn't sound like you think that there's any real downside to starting with that 21.
yeah,
Okay.
because I'm not picking a number. We're just picking. We the same thing, you know, and then let them come back and go through their machinations.
Yep.
And our position will consistently be we can't put the town at risk, not only in terms of financially, but in terms of looking bad. Imagine, I'll say to Charter, if it's the other way around and we treated you that way, you'd feel
Yep.
like, wow, you know, we did a
Yep.
good license with you, we got a good number,
Yep.
and the other company. So
Yep.
we can't. Now, then the question becomes, now the HD issue, high definition channel, they want you to pay for it. It doesn't pay to fight for it. You know, you're not going to pay for an HD channel. It'll eat up it's $600 a month they want. So in other places, I push that issue, and even there, I don't really care about it because it's too much of a battle. So we're not going to pursue that. We're not going to pursue money for the encoders. They already pick up at, I think, at the studio and at the middle school. That's
Yep.
what they need to continue to do. So the rest of the is the very, the fighting over the license, what they'll want to now, as I said, they'll want to, when they succeed with this in Worcester and all over the state, negotiate the whole document. 5 towns in the Berkshires, the attorney, they do a whole document and they go over section by section. We're not going to waste our time and money.
Hey, Bill,
License.
can I go back 1 second?
Yeah.
The HD channel, we actually got that from Verizon. I've not heard the Southborough Access Media guys beat the drum for that particularly. I can go back and reconfirm with them, but you think that's something that we're probably not going to get from Charter?
Can't get it. Yeah, you're not in a position to get it with it. We give it.
How about one of the things that we had in the Verizon deal was a list of the access points around town for this service?
Well, for cable service, we just had it for cable service, not for a video origination. We had it. The only
Yep.
place they picked up was the middle school, I believe,
Yeah.
and the 2 encoders. I got instead of giving me, they hadn't used the encoders before.
Right.
Got
Yep.
it. So instead, I got from Paul Train. He gave me more money
Some money there.
on the
But from a
capital.
standpoint of consistently with Verizon, I think we ought to ask for the same list of
Yeah,
locations.
but I don't think we have a list, Sam. I think the list are the places that if you ask for cable service to
Yep.
the building to
Yep.
see cable TV,
Yep.
and that's only if you ask. And I don't know anyone who asks Verizon because you get it from the other company. So I do think
Okay.
here you raise a good point. Well, firstly, we want to find out who uses Charter cable TV.
What do you mean, who?
Well, I mean, the
75.
list of buildings is going to be places that if you, well, your current list, your current license will have a list of buildings,
Right.
but it's who gets cable TV, which public buildings. I don't even see it listed. I don't have it right here.
Yeah. But
Um,
is it sufficient to say if Verizon is providing cable service to those buildings, then that's good
but
enough?
they're not. They're
Right.
not. They don't provide cable service anywhere to anyone, only because everyone usually has it usually from their incumbent company, and no one bothers asking Verizon because you don't need it twice. So it says
Okay.
if requested, we have it in there. I don't see in the license, at least the one I have here, and I'm sure it's there. And we're gonna now. Here's the thing about cable service to public buildings. The thing about Charter is they're the ones who were pushing the FCC to adopt, which the FCC did, a ruling on what the Cable Act means. And they came up, if you remember, with this concept of in-kind consideration,
Right.
that apart from the franchise fee, there's capital. And capital money under the Cable Act, it doesn't go toward that 5% cap on the franchise fee. But they came up with this phony term, in-kind consideration. And that would include cable service to public buildings. So they could take that, although the good guys won in the appeals court on one issue, their marginal cost, how much more does it cost them to provide cable service to public buildings? And they generally hear they're leaving towns alone because it's so little money. So we'll have it in the charter license, and they'll have the right to put it against the 5%. And if they actually do that, you have a choice of saying, you know what, keep your service, we don't want it,
Yeah.
or we'll pay you outside of the license,
Mhm.
or you can take it from the 5%. But, depending on how much they want to rip you off, the best
Okay.
approach may be just to say, and let me get my face here.
So you don't think it's worth fighting on either the HD channel or a list of buildings at this point, which is to me the
A,
here.
well, no, the list of buildings we're going to have on there, but it's for cable service to public.
Service, not service. So
Yeah.
let's keep moving then. I'd like to get done by
Yeah.
4 if we
Yeah,
can.
we will. So, all right. So those are the peg capital is really the big issue. I've done the analysis last night on this, as we've looked over. I mean, I think at the end of the day, you know, um, you know, you could probably, they're so small. And oh, by the way, I thought of like a percentage of gross revenue for capital. And I only don't like that with Charter because they fudge gross revenue numbers, but it still probably doesn't work out well. I mean, if you sent me, I didn't look at today yet. I'll look at their revenues, and if you pick like 1% of gross revenue, but it still would be more than I do here. So I just give you a gut feel and move on. I would say here, if Verizon's at 21,000, again, their payment was all right. Well, if they per capita amount would be 21,956, we could get down to 15, 14. I mean, I think Verizon, and you know what? I don't think I would do it, but it's possible if we feel like only thing holding us back is like we want to be fair to Verizon, is in a first in my cable experience, although not elsewhere. I could call up Paul Train and say, "Hey, Paul, they got 200 and what is it, 78 subscribers,
Yeah.
probably less by the time we do this.
Yeah.
And we're going to take, 12,000. Here's how we got there. You don't give a damn, right?" And if he says, I don't, he doesn't give a damn, it's fine.
Yeah.
Then we don't have to be constrained by our
Well,
moral obligation.
again, let's go with that approach. Try for the 21 plus, see what they say.
Yeah, no, I'm
and
just
we'll
trying to get
keep
the better.
moving on it then.
Good. All right.
So now down to other terms. Again, you've got other things that in the agreement that you would like to see in there, and
That's the hard part. But you know what? Let's not worry about that. See, the issue there becomes the same thing. Like, I'm not that concerned about Verizon doesn't usually look at the legalese. So it's just going to be whether or not the term is so egregious that I say, well, I mean, you can do it, but I would have to write the board and say,
Yeah.
So, but we're going to have to. We understand the approach here is to just go with anything, that's just barely acceptable. That's not, a sham. That's not like they're undoing your benefits you thought you had. That's the major one,
Yep.
and including the big provision. The big issue there is the level playing field. Charter is going to want to compare themselves to anyone who uses the right of way and provides video. That would include 5G, someone who hangs up wireless antennas on poles, who's in the right of way, who gets like a grant to location from the town that you can't turn down. And then Verizon wants to say, well, they didn't have to pay anything. So we're paying, I mean, Comcast, a Charter, So we're not paying anything. So to me, that's the biggest, if we get over that issue, all the rest of it will be okay.
Okay.
I just don't, as a matter of principle, believe that they want a cable franchise, and we'll compare them to cable. If we give someone a different cable license, and that includes, you know, Comcast and Verizon, but we're not comparing you to some company we don't know that doesn't have a cable franchise.
Right.
If you don't want, and by the way, here, not that we want to, they could walk away. I mean, they would just stall it out, so we'd be in Never Never Land. I'll talk about that in a second. They also could walk away because they have so few subscribers. And I think part of our position on the level playing field is not that we want to encourage it, because there are people who have Charter who probably like it.
Yep.
But 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 in some respects, you'd say, if you don't want to be a cable company, then don't be a cable company. Then don't get a cable franchise here. Because I don't think we would, other than caring about the residents who have Charter, I don't think, as from a larger perspective, I don't think anyone would care, right? I mean,
Well, I wouldn't, but on the other hand, I think we have an obligation to the residents who have charter to continue that if we reasonably can, which I
yeah,
think,
yeah, no, I just mean if they just on the issue of do they want to compare themselves to non-cable
right.
companies? Well,
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
don't be a cable company if you like that so much.
But let's see what they
Right.
have to say. And
Oh,
again,
no. I'm just, this is the one and only time, so we'll move on. So,
my
yeah,
take is, again, as you said, if we can get like 14 grand out of them for this, that gets us at least in the ballpark with Verizon. And I'm not eager to go to the mat over a few $1,000s here.
no, well, as I said, I think, and particularly if I were to use at one point, when we would talk about it, whether I'd speak to Paul Trade and say, and I think he would say he doesn't care.
Yeah.
It's not a problem. And I wouldn't even ask him to ask his client. If he said it, then you take it to the bank, and and we'd be fine. So,
Okay. Let's
uh,
talk about next steps then.
right. So the next step is really to now let me just go one last legal issue. There, in theory, since we don't follow the formal process, I don't think Charter would do this, but in theory, they could give you a proposal, and we hadn't given them our ascertainment or request for a proposal. And then if you get a proposal, you need to either accept it in whole, that's like litigation, or reject it.
Right.
So I'm a little afraid that if we don't, even though there's timing issues here, we could still do it practically. If we don't give them our ascertainment and an RF request for proposal, and then just stay the whole thing, stay it like I've done elsewhere with them and other companies too. Just stay it so we're not into this administrative, like, this more formal process under the Cable Act where they give us a proposal and we could preliminary deny it and then we'd have a hearing. But part of me feels I'd like to send them a request for a proposal and then stay it and tell them beforehand, hey, we're sending you an RFP, but we'll stay it, and let's agree to stay it. That protects us from the outside chance they give you a proposal and you gave them nothing of your ascertainment and you don't really have a legal basis to deny them that their proposal doesn't meet your cable needs and interest because you didn't tell them what your cable needs and interests were.
So
So,
why not do that? Do you have a draft?
yeah, no, I mean, I don't think it's that inaffordable to do that here. I could do it pretty quickly, and we have a capital plan, and we could blah blah blah. So I think I would do it here because I just don't want you out there where there's
Okay.
some sort of legal risk.
And then we need to have a hearing if we do that.
Well, in terms of having the hearing, this gets back to if you think you could have a good hearing, get people come and say good things about the importance of community television or what the Access Corp does, then I would have the hearing mostly for purposes of having Charter there and showing them that this really matters to the town. That would help our negotiations a little
I
bit.
think that's unlikely that we would get a crowd.
Right.
Yeah,
And that's what we
agree.
talked
I
about.
think it's unlikely.
Right. So with that, then I don't think I'd have a hearing. And you don't have to have a hearing for this formal process. So we would send them, we would talk, I put something together, we talk about that, send it out. Now the other possibility I could do with Nancy is I could reach some agreement that when we stay us sending an RFP, and that if the parties don't reach an agreement, the town has a right to send it out. So that's even better.
Why don't you try that then?
Yeah, it's a little timing wise, it's within it's a little late, but it's like it's not like an official clock. So, but so to do that though, I think our rep is Nancy Clark. Is that correct? Is she? Do you ever, she? I can reach out to her to see if she's handling it.
I have not seen
There's
anything. as
another
of
woman,
now.
Shelley. I forgot her last name. So I'll reach out to them and find out who handles Southborough. And then
These
I
are
think
Comcast people, right? You're talking
Right.
about
no charter.
charter
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. And so then I can reach out to them and we can then figure out which way we could go. And I think we should meet with them. You know, it may be the second weekend, have one meeting with Pittsfield on the 9th. Maybe I don't know, maybe the week of July 14th.
Would that be Zoom or in person?
You know, the more we tell them they got to come, if they do, the more they'll want to get this done.
Okay,
So
Okay.
in person.
okay.
So this would be July 14th.
Second
Well,
week of
sometime that
July.
week, yeah.
Let me just look. I'm in pretty good shape that week. I've got several things. Friday is not a good day for me, the 18th, but other than that, right, second week of July it was the 9th, 12th. I'm pretty flexible that second week, the week of July the 7th,
Okay, so, oh no, the July 14th week, I'm
July
thinking of.
14th week. Okay.
Yeah.
Friday, the 18th is bad for me.
Okay, so
How about
14,
you guys?
15. Okay, so 14.
Will,
Yep.
Tony, does that week of
Um,
July work?
It works for me, with the exception of, the morning and Wednesday, can't do early morning on Wednesday and, actually, no, I can't do the evening on Wednesday and I can't do the evening on Thursday.
Tony,
Well, we'll make a daytime.
Yeah, daytime would be
if you
great.
guys
Yes,
can
that'd
make
be
that.
fine. That'd be
So what are the
Tony
days that work?
Friday's bad for me. Tony, how about you?
Which weekend are you saying again, Sam?
14th.
14th?
The 14th. I can probably make that work. So please.
Yeah, actually, let me add to that. I can't make any time on the Thursday, the 17th work.
Okay,
Okay,
That's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday then,
yeah,
14th,
during the
15th.
day. Yep.
During the day. Okay. So let's aim for that then and see if they will show up.
okay.
And then,
Well,
Bill,
well,
you're going to connect with them to talk about the ascertainment process, get confirmation on that one. And are you going to talk with them as well, Bill, about sort of the major deal points here that we've talked about to see if we can make progress on
No,
where we're different, if any place?
yeah, no. We need to do that together, and I need you, the guy, folks, to talk about. You know, you can't put
Okay.
yourself at risk. You need to. You know, we'll prepare for that. I need you folks. I need them to know how you care about it and the things you can and can't do. Otherwise, she'll look at me like we can't do that. You know, it's crazy. But this is 99% psychological. Force her, one of the two women, will have to tell you in person to your face. And you say, well, I mean, why can't you? Negotiation is done by questions. Well, if you're paying the same as Verizon, then you're not at a competitive disadvantage. So why is that not doable? I mean, why can they do it and you not? I
Okay.
can understand, just like they don't want to be at a competitive disadvantage. We really think this is a question of fairness.
Yep.
And then,
Okay.
you know what you're going to tell you.
Get the sob story ready. Good.
Yeah, well, that's the way life works. You know what I mean? When
Yep.
when Einstein did his paper on relativity, and he spoke at the Academy, they just didn't ask him what the final result was. He gave some explanation. So I follow Einstein. All right. So
Okay.
good.
Are we set then?
Yeah, we are set. Yep.
Tony, Will, any other questions at this point?
No, I'm all set.
Okay. We have one attendee. Our last item is public comment. Any public comment?
Do we want to see a hand raised there?
I don't see a hand raised, so we'll go on. So, and again, I guess, Bill, we look to you to give us feedback on the date. I don't think we need a meeting between now and the
we
July
can do a Zoom meeting for
meeting.
it. I think we should have a Zoom pre-meeting for Zoom.
Okay.
But we could do that. Let's get the date and we can figure out maybe the same week even, you
Okay.
know. And then one other thing I was going to say.
Yeah, if you get a date, then I can work to schedule us for another Zoom meeting.
Yeah, no, that'd be good. And I think now that we've gone over this, you can like relook at my outline, and those numbers will, you know, make more sense. As how did I come up with numbers high and low based on a theory, whether it's what they paid before. I mean, one of the things is, I mean, why can't, you know, the lower numbers, why can't you pay the same amount you paid before per subscriber? They'll say we've lost subscribers. Well, then pay the same amount you paid last time, you know, and then, but we, you know, we can say, well, but we think we should take into account the cost of increase in cost. Now, now that you sent me,
Sam, I'm going to just interrupt here for, hey, Sam, so I sort of need to drop off.
oh,
Okay.
okay, all good.
Right. So
And Sam, I'll review the gross revenues so I can
okay,
see,
good.
because they're
And
not going to
so-
be down as much as the subscriber
Okay.
account.
So I will move that we adjourn. Do we have a
Good.
second?
I second.
Okay, roll call vote. Tony,
Yes.
Will,
Yes, we're adjourning at 3:58.
358. Sam is yes also.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Bill.
All
Look to hear
right.
from you about next steps. Thanks, folks.
Good. Thank you.
Talk
Okay.
soon. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.